What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and in this video, we're going to be checking out the BLU View 2. Now, this is a recently launched prepaid phone that is being offered by Tracfone, and you can pick up this device for just $29.99. Now, clearly for $29.99, you shouldn't be expecting too much. However, I have been pretty decently impressed with this device so far. And that's of course after factoring in how affordable it is. For $29.99, I'm really not expecting much. Honestly, I'm not really even expecting a phone that can even work. But so far, it's been pretty decent with this one. Now, before we get too far into things here, I do want to show you what all comes included in the box. Here is the actual box itself. You can see right there, Tracfone, no contract. There's a map of their network, and then there's a picture of the actual phone itself. Now, this is one of those phone boxes that is pretty big. Not typically a huge fan of that, but that's pretty much how they always are for Tracfone. But when you open up the front panel here, typically the phone would be right here, and then we have some information about all their various plans. Then to access the contents, you just need to pull out this plastic piece here. We have quite a bit of literature that is in the back compartment of this clamshell. We have the quick start guide for the device, and then we also have some other booklets here from Tracfone. Now, getting further into here, I do want to mention that when you first do get the phone, what's kind of interesting is that the back panel right here, which does come off, actually comes in its own separate bag. And then this phone does feature a removable battery, which is pretty rare nowadays. But that's also in the packaging. So you have to take both of those items, obviously put the battery in the phone, put the back on the phone, and then you'll be all good to go. Now, actually, it looks like we have a dedicated quick start guide. Sorry about that. I thought this was the quick start guide, but this one actually is. We also have Tracfone terms and conditions. We also have what appears to be a USB-C cable. Definitely very impressive that a $30 phone comes with USB-C. Nowadays, especially in 2021, there really is no excuse for any device to feature micro USB, even though we do see that quite a bit. And then we also have the USB wall adapter, if I can get this open here. There it is. And you can see we do have blue branding on the actual adapter itself. Now, since we are getting a removable back here with the phone, there is no SIM card removal tool, because to access the SIM card, all you have to do is just take the back off the actual phone itself, which you can access here in the corner. Now, this is actually my first time taking the back off. Let's see how difficult or easy this is. Let me try to not break the phone. There we go. Actually came off pretty easily, but at the same time, it does stay on pretty securely. So you can see here we have the battery, and then to access the SIM card, you do have to take the battery out, and then we do have the slot for the micro SD card right here. Now, before anybody says it in the comments, no, this device likely will not get very many updates, if any at all. Now, it does feature Android 10. I really doubt it'll ever get Android 11 because BLU doesn't really update their phones to newer versions of Android, but occasionally they will send out security patches for their devices. Now, considering that this phone is just $30, I feel like being stuck with Android 10 forever really isn't an issue here. This likely will be a device that you'll just use for like a year, maybe 2 at the most, and then move on to something else. Or if you want to use this phone for a longer period of time than that, then go ahead. Now, with this device, we are getting a 5.5-inch display. We're getting an LCD display here at 720p. We're getting a PPI of 293, and we're getting an 18:9 aspect ratio. So a more narrow but taller form factor. Now, this phone certainly does feature a more traditional design. As you can tell, we do have squared off corners, which is pretty rare to find nowadays. And in addition to that, we do have very large bezels in the top and bottom of the phone. But the good news, though, is that the display that we're getting here is actually pretty bright. And even though it is 720p, I feel like it does look pretty good. I don't really see any issues with the actual display itself as far as visibility and brightness goes. So in general, I'm fine with it. Now, it's hard to see, but up top here, we do have an 8-megapixel front-facing camera. Stay tuned for the full review of this phone to see the various photo and video samples from it. But also with the phone, we're getting 32 gigabytes of internal storage. And as I mentioned earlier on in the video, this phone does feature micro SD card expansion. Now, there's no wireless charging. There's also no face unlock or fingerprint sensor. So you are going to have to set a PIN code on the device, and that will be your primary method for getting into it. Or if you don't want to set a code at all, that's an option too. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that though. Now on the back side of the phone, we do have a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. There is no portrait mode, by the way, for either the rear or front cameras, so keep that in mind. I wouldn't expect that though with a $30 smartphone. And then we're getting 2 gigabytes of RAM and the MediaTek Helio A22 processor. Now 2 gigs of RAM, nothing special, certainly better than 1. And as far as the Helio A22 goes, at least for a $30 phone, that's a good processor. They really could have gone way worse if they wanted to. So at least with this phone, you're going to be able to navigate around pretty smoothly. And if you just want to use this phone for phone calls, text messages, occasional photo taking, and also occasional social media, then this should hold up pretty nicely for you. Now, as far as performance goes, I did run the Geekbench 5 benchmark test here on the phone. I'll show you the scores from that test right now. I got a single core score here of 144 and a multi-core score of 510. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores. And if these scores are lower than the scores in your current phone, and especially if they're lower by a lot, then this phone probably won't be an upgrade for you. So keep that in mind. Now, video recording with the phone maxes out at 1080p with both the front and rear cameras, which is also pretty awesome to see for a phone that is just $30. And as I mentioned earlier, the phone does have a removable battery, and that battery is 2,920 milliamp hours. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the software is Android 10. We're getting a pretty clean layout of Android here, so if you are used to using a phone that does have stock Android, you are going to feel very familiar here. And then there is no NFC, unfortunately. So if you do like to make mobile contactless payments, you can't do that here with the phone. But taking a closer look at the hardware, as I mentioned, I actually am decently impressed with the display. I was expecting it to be much worse, and in fact, it's really not even bad at all, so that's fine. And then we have the earpiece, front-facing camera. Then on the left side of the phone, we have nothing. Then on the right side of the phone, power button, volume down, volume up. Then up top here, a 3.5mm headphone jack. Then on the bottom of the phone, we just have the USB-C port for charging and data transfer. And then on the back of the phone, we have the noise-canceling microphone, camera module, the blue logo, the Tracfone logo, and then we have the speaker. So in general, a very basic entry-level smartphone that doesn't necessarily have too many different features, but at the same time, for $30, this does seem like a phone that will at least get the job done, as long as you're not expecting too much. But I'm definitely curious to know what you think about the BLU View 2. Definitely let me know in the comment section below, and if you have this phone, especially let me know about that. I'm really curious to know how your experience has been with the actual device itself. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one.